We believe that evidence matters. And it's not only evidence about the situation, the status, what is there, the challenges, the barriers, but we believe that we need evidence on innovative solutions, on what works for advancing women economic empowerment. And once we have the evidence, we believe that is not enough. We need to share this evidence out. We need to get it to the policy space and use it to influence policy for women economic empowerment. So that is what we've been doing for the last 5 years. We generate evidence and use it to inform policy on women economic empowerment. Please allow me to appreciate the Press Club event organizers, more specifically for the opportunity accorded to me to be a part of this important conversation on women cultivating opportunity, advancing the rights, justice, and action for women farmers and agripreneurs in Kenya. This is a very important conversation as we observe this year's International Women's Day, because women economic empowerment, this is a very important and timely conversation. Now in Kenya in particular, we know that women are central to Kenya's agricultural economy. They play the vital role of agricultural production, food systems, getting involved in the whole agricultural value chain, including in trade, processing and distribution of food, and also they contribute to the livelihood in the rural areas where agricultural activity is the mainstay. In Kenya, women account for 70 to 80% of the labor force in the agricultural sector. So let us think about the agricultural sector. 70 to 80% it will be women. We are simply saying, if you get 10 people that work in the agricultural sector, 7 or 8 of them will be women. So that is quite a large proportion. And the most discouraging thing about this is good for them to be involved in those high levels. We find that they are mainly in the informal and the small scale subsistence farming. Subsistence farming is good because we know that it's the one that provides food for the family, for the household, and therefore it's good for food security. But again, we are saying, is it the informal? It's not recognized, it's not counted in the GDP, because when we measure the size of the economy, we exclude the production and the services that are done by a household member to the benefit of another household member. So when we talk about the GDP, that 24% contribution of the agricultural sector, most of the women are not included in that contribution. So we're simply saying there are many, we know the numbers, but their contribution is not really valued as a part of the main economy. But we know it matters because that's what feeds us in the households. Again, another thing we may want to note is that women in Kenya are responsible for 60 to 80% of food production. I think we've heard about the president talk about the production that was done by the mom, and also we know even what our parents are doing, and our mothers particularly, are doing. 60 to 80% of food production in Kenya is by women. I think that is very important, and it just shows the place of women and how women matter in the agricultural sector, and the importance of their contribution to food and nutrition for good lives and healthy lives in Kenya. Now, however, there is really a gender gap or disparity when you compare the woman farmer and the male farmers. Although women account for these high numbers of 70 to 80% and they are producing 60 to 80% of food, we also know that women, they only account for 33% of formal wage employment. So we are simply saying, yes, they are there, they are many, but actually they are not paid. They are producing for subsistence and for the consumption of a household. I don't mean that is not important. It is important. But from the economic point of view, we don't count that in the GDP because we are saying when we count what the size of the economy, we don't count what is not brought in the market. And women are also mainly in the informal sector, producing for subsistence, and this is good for the family as well as for the household. And we also know that Kenyan women hold less than 10% of the land titles independently, where we can say that people who hold title deeds, women account for less than 10%. But what is the importance of this? Title deed is important. That ownership is important for the control and decision making, because when somebody does not have the title deed, then they are limited in decision making, and more specifically about what to produce, where to produce, how much to produce, and even for whom to produce. And that is why they may have to remain subsistence to produce for the household, which is good, but an extra production is important for an income for the household. So decision making is limited by the fact that they do not really have the control and the ownership of land. Regarding access to credit, we find that women receive less than 10% of the available agricultural credit. So again, we are saying they need to invest in the agricultural sector. They need money, but access is limited to the woman farmer. And women also generally work longer hours compared to men. And we find that they, on average, in the agricultural sector, women are working, if we consider women in the agricultural sector, they work 12.9 hours per day, compared to men who work 8.2 hours per day. I think we know that even those in the formal employment, the working hours could be 8. So how does it get to 12.9? It's because of the care work and domestic work, which is important and which is done for the family. And women bear the burden of this work. It is a good thing. But again, we are saying, if you're comparing the hours they spend in the workplace, in the farm, and also the hours they spend in the household, they spend quite a lot of time as compared to men. So again, that becomes a barrier, because it talks of what we call in economics time poverty, because we're simply saying they don't have enough time to spend in their workplace, whether they are entrepreneurs in the agricultural sector, whether they are farming, because they have other roles to play in the family as caregivers, as well as taking care of the babies, for the sick, for the persons with disability, as well as for the elderly, and also for the domestic work. Another important thing we may want to talk about women in Kenya is that given these few barriers that I've talked about, because there are many, we know that economic empowerment is very important, because in fact, given that it employs so many people, and in this case, it employs women, and therefore supporting women farmers and agripreneurs leads to increased agricultural productivity. For example, closing the gaps between men and women in accessing agricultural production, resources such as land and credit can lead to an increase in yields, agricultural yields, by between 20 and 30%. So we are saying that the difference between the yields between women and men, which are existing, and then already this can be closed if we address the issue of accessing the factors of production, such as land, such as credit, and the yield would increase by 20 to 30%. And this will lead to, improved household or national food security and nutrition, greater economic resilience within communities, increased incomes at household levels and the national level at large. So women economic empowerment, especially women in agricultural sector, counts. Another thing is that when we look at this empowerment, the issue of research and innovation is key, especially to unlock the opportunities that exist. And this research needs to go beyond the status, where are we, and what are the barriers, and what are the opportunities. It needs to go beyond that to coming up with solutions, innovative solutions, which are accessible to women farmers and which work for them to be able to increase their agricultural productivity. A lot of time spent on giving care for the children, or going to work in the market with a child. So we set one, we were piloting to study the impact of accessing that child care, first on the child nutrition, and secondly on the women economic empowerment. And we found that in a 3 years period, women that were able to access the child care, which is of high quality and which is affordable, they were able to increase the time they spent in their businesses by 12%. They were able to increase their sales by 40% and to increase their profits by 25%. And of course, they were much happier. There are things that we could not really measure, but we found that they were much happier. They are not worried whether the child is running about. They are likely to meet a motorbike speeding there when they are running in the marketplace, and that also improves their health. So what we're saying is research that informs policy. Another example is a program that we set at Women Economic Empowerment Hub. We came up with a women business incubation program, and we incubated women businesses from 12 counties in Kenya. We linked them with technology, and they were able to value add different products, and this led to the growth of their businesses. Solutions that work to improve women's economic empowerment. I have many examples to give, but let me stop at that point in the interest of time. Another thing I may want to point is that structural barriers leading to gender gaps, disproportionately and negatively impact on women, and these need to be addressed. Now, when we talk about these structural barriers, I would like to talk first and foremost about the cultural and gender norms, which exist. The beliefs by the community and by the society that women should do this and women should not do this. This work is for women, this one is for men, and so on and so on. And that is a reality, and we know it. In this case, we find that it's necessary to address this. Because if we address these cultural norms and also gender norms, it will strengthen women's participation in the economy, and it will bring more income to the household, and that is good for economic development. Another important thing in addressing the barriers is to strengthen women's land and inheritance rights. I do know that if we look at the Constitution of Kenya 2010, there is provision that guarantees women equal rights to land ownership and inheritance. But we know for sure this is not being enforced. In some places it is working, but we are a long way to go. Mainly because, again, of cultural norms and what the society believes, and so on and so on. But the point here is we need to address, we need to enforce those provisions so that women are able to inherit land, they can own land, they'll be able to make the right decisions on what to produce and how to produce and what quantities and at what place, and even for what market to produce for whom. Another important thing in addressing the barriers, it is important to expand access to affordable finance and markets. We know credit is there, banks are there, but most of the times they are not reachable by women, they are not accessible. The high interest rate, the requirements of collateral and so on are a big challenge to the women. So I would suggest, a situation where we have development of financial products and services that are suitable to women. For example, including those ones that can lend to women collectives, because that way women collectives are able to provide that guarantee as a group, and therefore women will be able to access credit to invest in the agricultural sector. Another, recommendation that we can consider is to promote gender-responsive agricultural policies and programs, and more specifically, we need programs that address specific needs and roles and constraints of women and men to reduce inequalities and enhance productivity. When I talk about this, for example, I've given an example of a child care center. We know that women are the ones really that take care for the small babies below 4 years who are not yet going to the school system. So such things lead to addressing barriers. Women who spend more time in the workplace, in their businesses, and that is good. And even in the farm, because they know that the child is in a safe place and is taken care of. And also, another example when it comes to technology is we need technologies that are friendly to women and which are affordable, and where women can be able to use them and to afford them and use them, including use of improved seeds which lead to better yields. Also, participation of women in leadership is very important so that they can make decisions concerning things that concern them regarding the environment and agricultural production and marketing. And of course, investing and promoting collection and use of gender disaggregated data, because this is important in the use of decisions, especially regarding programming in the agricultural sector, in government interventions, as well as guiding investment decisions. And finally, I would like to say that partnerships for women economic empowerment in agricultural sector are very essential. I would give examples of partnerships that the women economic empowerment has had with the private sector, with the banks, with KILD, with Kenya Industrial Estates, and many other partners in the civil society. We've worked in partnership, and we have seen that partnerships for we is very critical, because each one of us has a role to play, and when we play that role and put it together, we pull together in the same direction and we are able to achieve a lot. So partnerships key. And in conclusion, Kenya's agricultural transformation depends on unlocking the full potential of women in agriculture, strengthening collaboration between research institutions, policymakers, and grassroots actors will be key to advancing the rights, justice, and the opportunity for women farmers and agripreneurs in Kenya. I want to thank you very much for being very attentive.